No species in the Orion Reach had ever refused the kneeling ritual. When the human did, the chamber fell silent. The Hall of Accord was built to crush defiance. Its ceiling stretched like a night sky made of metal, its walls carved with symbols of conquest from 1,000 conquered worlds. At the center stood the Circle of Judgment, where species were ranked, measured, and, if necessary, broken. Commander Elias Rowan stood alone inside that circle. He was human. Across from him rose the Triarch Council of the Virex Dominion, towering alien beings with layered armor fused into their flesh, eyes glowing with cold intelligence. They had ruled star systems for millennia. Entire civilizations had bent their knees here without resistance. The Virex expected the same. The ritual was simple. The lesser species knelt. The Dominion decided their fate. A low, vibrating voice echoed through the hall. "Human representative," the High Triarch intoned, "kneel and accept provisional subjugation." Thousands of alien delegates watched from the tiers above. They expected hesitation, fear, begging. What they did not expect was laughter. Soft at first, then clear. Commander Rowan smiled. "I'm sorry," he said calmly. "I don't kneel to anyone who hasn't earned it." A shockwave of disbelief rippled through the chamber. The Virex had studied humans for decades. Aggressive, emotional, fragile without technology, easily intimidated when isolated. Yet this human stood relaxed, hands behind his back, eyes steady. The High Triarch leaned forward. "You misunderstand," it said. "This is not a request." Rowan nodded. "I understand perfectly." Then he did something no alien database had predicted. He sat down. Right there on the cold alloy floor of the circle. Gasps echoed across dozens of species. The Virex guards stiffened, weapons activating in synchronized hums. To sit instead of kneel was not just disrespect, it was a symbolic rejection of the entire Dominion hierarchy. "Stand," the Triarch commanded. Rowan didn't. "You came here expecting submission," Rowan said evenly. "You brought me alone, stripped my escort, surrounded me with power. You thought fear would do the work for you." He looked up, meeting the Triarch's gaze. "That's not how humans work." The High Triarch's eyes flared brighter. "You are one human. Your species is outmatched. Your worlds are vulnerable." Rowan smiled again, but this time there was no humor in it. "Yes," he said. "That's exactly why I'm here." A ripple of unease spread through the council. The Virex believed strength was shown through dominance. Humans believed something else entirely. Rowan activated the small disc at his wrist. Not a weapon. A broadcast. Across the chamber, holograms erupted into existence, dozens of them. Star maps. Trade routes. Energy flows. Virex logistics networks highlighted in pulsing red. Murmurs exploded across the hall. "You see," Rowan continued, "while you were studying how to scare us, we were studying how you survive." The High Triarch rose to its full height. "This information is classified." Rowan shrugged. It was. He stood now, not to kneel, but to face them eye to eye. "Humans don't win by overpowering," he said. "We win by understanding systems. By finding weak points. By cooperating when others compete." The Triarch Council conferred in rapid, clicking tones. No species had ever dared present leverage here. The Circle of Judgment was meant to end negotiations, not begin them. "And what," the Triarch asked coldly, "do you believe this grants you?" Rowan met its gaze without blinking. "A conversation," he said. "Between equals." Silence stretched. Then, something unprecedented happened. The High Triarch raised a clawed hand, not in command, but hesitation. Around the chamber, alien delegates leaned forward. This was not fear they felt. It was confusion. And something far more dangerous to an empire built on dominance. Respect. Because for the first time in Virex history, a species had not reacted the way they expected. And the Dominion had no idea what humans would do next. The High Triarch did not sit, did not soften, did not smile. But it did something the Virex Dominion almost never did. It listened. That alone sent quiet panic through the observing delegates. In the Dominion, listening to a lesser species was seen as weakness. Empires did not negotiate. Empires commanded. Commander Elias Rowan felt the shift in the air like a pressure change before a storm. The Triarch's voice came low and heavy. You claim you have leverage. You claim you understand our systems. Then you also understand what happens to those who challenge the circle. Rowan nodded once. Execution. Or worse. The Triarch's glowing eyes narrowed. Correct. Around the circle, the Virex honor guards tightened their formation. Their weapons did not point directly at Rowan yet, but they were angled in a way that promised violence could begin in a blink. Rowan did not move. A human diplomat was trained for composure, but Rowan was something else too. He had served on frontier stations. He had watched pirates burn refugee ships. He had negotiated with warlords who smiled while they lied. He knew fear. He knew pain. And he knew when the only way forward was to refuse to be small. He looked up toward the tiers where the other species watched. Some were terrified. Some were fascinated. A few looked hopeful, like they had been waiting their whole history to see someone stand up to the Dominion. Rowan lifted his wrist again. The holographic map returned, only now, the red highlights pulsed faster, focusing on a single corridor of space. This, Rowan said, is the spine route. A ripple moved through the crowd. The spine route was a Virex-controlled shipping corridor that fed their war fleets and industrial worlds. If it failed, everything behind it would starve: armies, factories, entire planets. The Triarch's voice sharpened. You are threatening our supply chain. Rowan shook his head slowly. No. I'm explaining reality. He zoomed the map. A chain of nodes appeared: relay stations, fuel depots, maintenance yards. They looked solid, heavily protected. Then Rowan highlighted a thin line. A single point. A small, unlabeled region at the edge of known space. The High Triarch's posture stiffened. Even the honor guards glanced at each other. Rowan saw it. He felt it. The Virex recognized the point. That, Rowan said, is your soft underbelly. The Triarch's voice dropped. How do you know of that station? Rowan's answer was simple. Because humans get bored. More murmurs. Rowan continued. Your empire is built like a machine. Efficient. Predictable. Strong in straight lines. You repeat patterns because they have worked for a long time. He tapped the air, and a new overlay appeared. Human exploratory routes, tiny compared to the Dominion's vast lanes, like scribbles around the edges of a perfect map. We don't build perfect systems, Rowan said. We build messy ones. We improvise. We make mistakes. And then we survive our mistakes by adapting. He pointed at the thin, vulnerable point again. That relay station was built for speed, not resilience, Rowan said. A single catastrophic failure there would cause a cascade. Not forever. Not permanent. But long enough. The Triarch's eyes flared. Long enough for what? Rowan's face did not change. Long enough to remind you that humans are not harmless. A delegate in the upper tiers, an avian species with jeweled feathers, made a nervous sound. Another species, insect-like and ancient, leaned forward and clicked its mandibles slowly, as if processing the idea of a small species finding pressure points in a giant. The High Triarch's voice rose. You speak with arrogance. Your species is new. You have not endured what we have endured. You have not built what we have built. Rowan didn't deny it. No, he said. We're new. And that's exactly why we're dangerous. The hall fell quiet again. New species still believed in impossible things. Old empires feared them. The Triarch spoke again. If you possess the ability to harm the spine route, then you possess the ability to bring chaos into our dominion. That cannot be permitted. Rowan nodded. Agreed. The Triarch paused. Then you will surrender your knowledge. You will kneel. You will become a protected client species under Dominion authority. Rowan laughed once. Not mocking. Not loud. Just human. No, he said. The Triarch's patience snapped like a steel cable. The honor guards activated fully. Weapons rose. A harsh, vibrating alarm tone pulsed through the circle. Rowan did not flinch. And that was the moment the Virex truly began to fear him. Because fear was supposed to be the human weakness. But Rowan looked calm. The High Triarch's voice thundered. Human representative, you will comply or you will be erased. Rowan inhaled slowly, then exhaled. He raised his hands, palms open. A gesture meant to show he carried no weapon. But what he did next was far more shocking. He turned his open palm toward the Triarch, not as a surrender. As an offer. We didn't come here to start a war, Rowan said. We came here to stop one. The Triarch's eyes narrowed. You speak in contradictions. Rowan nodded. That's because you think power is only domination. Humans think power is options. He lowered his hands. We discovered the weak point, Rowan said. Yes. We could exploit it. Yes. If you push us far enough, we will. He paused. But we also discovered something else. He tapped his wrist again. A new hologram formed, a projection of Virex energy readings over time. A pattern emerged, subtle but undeniable. The Virex delegates stiffened. Their empire's power output was fluctuating. Not random. Worsening. Rowan looked directly at the High Triarch. Your core reactors are aging, he said. Your expansion has outpaced your infrastructure. You've been patching, delaying, hiding the problem. But it's catching up. The Triarch's voice went quiet. That silence was heavier than any threat. Rowan continued gently, almost sadly. You don't need humans to kneel, he said. You need humans to help. A hiss of outrage rippled through the Virex guard line. Help from a lesser species was humiliation. But the Triarch's expression had changed. Not anger. Calculation. Rowan saw it clearly now. Behind the armor, behind the pride, the Dominion was under pressure. Maybe not collapsing today. But strained. A giant, still standing, with cracks forming inside. Rowan spoke into that crack. We can stabilize your infrastructure, he said. We can share modular reactor designs. Adaptive grid protocols. Redundant fail-safe systems that you don't use because you don't like inefficiency. He held the Triarch's gaze. In exchange, Rowan said, you stop annexing our worlds. You recognize human sovereignty. And you open the circle of judgment to real diplomacy. For a moment, the entire Hall of Accord seemed to stop breathing. No species had ever demanded terms here. Yet Rowan wasn't just demanding. He was offering the Dominion a way out without losing face, because humans were clever enough to give their enemy a dignified door instead of a humiliating trap. The High Triarch's voice was quieter than before. You would repair the Dominion, it said slowly, in exchange for your freedom. Rowan nodded. Yes. The Triarch stared for a long time. Then it spoke words that caused the entire chamber to erupt. We will test you. Rowan's expression stayed neutral. How? The Triarch lifted a claw and pointed toward the far end of the hall. A massive door opened with a deep grinding sound. Beyond it, a corridor descended into darkness. The Crucible Arena, the Triarch said. Where truth is proven. Rowan's stomach tightened slightly. He had read rumors. Not confirmed records. The Virex did not broadcast the Crucible. But he knew enough. Species entered. Few returned unchanged. The Triarch's voice became cold again. You will face what breaks most minds. You will experience our methods. You will endure our pressure. If you remain unbroken, we will consider your proposal. Rowan understood what this was. Not a negotiation. A cultural weapon. The Virex believed that all beings had a submission point. They intended to find the human one. Rowan looked up at the watching delegates, terrified, hopeful, silent. Then he looked back at the Triarch. He could refuse and die, or accept and risk becoming a symbol. The kind of symbol that made empires cautious. Rowan nodded once. "I'll do it," he said. The High Triarch leaned forward. "Do you understand what you are agreeing to, human?" Rowan's voice was steady. "I understand you think you're about to teach humanity a lesson," he said. He turned toward the dark corridor. "But what happens next," Rowan added, "is going to teach your entire empire something you didn't know you needed to learn." The hall erupted in whispers. The Virex guards moved to escort him. Rowan walked with them without resistance. Not because he was obedient. Because he had chosen the battlefield. And deep in the Crucible arena, the Dominion was about to witness the most terrifying human reaction of all. Not fear. Not rage. But creativity under pressure. The doors of the Crucible sealed behind Elias Rowan with a sound like a tomb closing. Darkness swallowed him. Not the gentle dark of sleep or space, but a heavy, pressing absence of light that seemed to push inward, testing his nerves. The air shifted, thick with an unfamiliar metallic scent. Somewhere far above, unseen mechanisms began to move. Rowan stood still. The Crucible arena was not meant to kill the body. It was designed to break the mind. A voice filled the darkness, layered and echoing, speaking in perfect translated human speech. Subject: human. Designation: Elias Rowan. The temperature dropped suddenly. Cold seeped through his boots, climbed his legs, bit into his skin. "You will be evaluated," the voice said. "Resistance is irrelevant." Lights flared to life. Rowan found himself standing on a wide platform suspended over nothing. Beneath him was a void that seemed endless. Around him, walls of shifting energy flickered, displaying scenes that made his chest tighten. Earth. Cities burning. Human ships torn apart by alien weapons. He saw people running. Screaming. Dying. The voice returned. "Observe the inevitable outcome of defiance." The images grew sharper. More detailed. Faces became clear. Rowan's jaw tightened. The Crucible was pulling from his memories, his fears, his projections of the future. It wanted despair. It wanted surrender. Rowan took a slow breath. "Interesting choice," he said quietly. The voice paused. "Just for a fraction of a second. You do not find this distressing?" it asked. Rowan tilted his head slightly. "It is," he said. "But it's incomplete." The images shifted again. Now he saw himself. Older. Alone. Earth conquered. Humanity reduced to scattered enclaves, surviving on the edges of alien space. "This is your path," the voice said. "You cannot prevent it." Rowan closed his eyes. When he opened them, he was smiling. "You don't understand humans at all," he said. The platform trembled. The Crucible intensified the pressure. Gravity increased, forcing Rowan to bend his knees slightly. His muscles strained. Pain flared through his spine. "Submit," the voice commanded. "Acknowledge inferiority." Rowan exhaled through clenched teeth. "You think fear makes us obedient," he said. "It doesn't." The images changed again. Now they showed moments from human history. Wars. Plagues. Nuclear fire. Starvation. Collapse. "You have failed repeatedly," the voice said. "Your species is self-destructive." Rowan laughed softly, breathless but sincere. "Yes," he said. "We are." The Crucible seemed confused by that response. Rowan straightened as much as the gravity allowed. "And every time we fail," he continued, "we learn something." The platform shook harder now. The Crucible adjusted, shifting tactics. Emotional pressure layered on top of physical strain. Guilt. Regret. Faces of people Rowan had lost in his career. Crew members, civilians, friends. "You could have saved them," the voice whispered. Rowan's eyes burned. He did not deny the pain. He did not push it away. He leaned into it. "You're right," he said quietly. "I could have done better." The crucible hesitated again. But here's the thing, Rowan said. Humans don't need to believe we're perfect to keep going. The gravity increased once more. His boots groaned against the platform. His arms shook. In the observation chamber above, unseen by Rowan, the Virex triarchs watched in silence. No species had ever responded like this. Most begged. Some screamed. Others went catatonic. The human acknowledged failure, and continued anyway. Rowan shifted his stance, adjusting his balance with small, efficient movements. You designed this to overwhelm, he said. To flood the senses. To force a single emotional outcome. The voice grew sharper. Your analysis is irrelevant. Rowan chuckled. That's what everyone says right before humans break their system. The crucible responded by changing the environment. The void vanished. Rowan now stood on a battlefield. Smoke. Explosions. The sound of weapons tearing the air apart. Around him, human soldiers fell one by one. A young soldier looked at him, eyes wide with fear. Sir, the soldier asked, what do we do? The crucible wanted him to freeze. To despair. Rowan stepped forward. We adapt, he said firmly. The battlefield froze. Time itself seemed to hesitate. The voice spoke again, slower now. Explain. Rowan gestured around him. You're trying to crush me with scale. With inevitability. With power. He looked up, as if staring directly into the watching Triarch's eyes. But humans don't fight inevitability head-on, he said. We go around it. Under it. Through places you didn't think mattered. The scene shattered like glass. The crucible systems began cycling rapidly, throwing new stimuli at him faster than before. Sounds. Lights. Emotions. Contradictions. Rowan's breathing steadied. He started cataloging patterns. Not consciously. Not formally. Instinctively. This was what humans did best when overwhelmed. They looked for rules. The platform's vibrations followed a rhythm. The emotional projections spiked after moments of calm. The gravity changes lagged slightly behind the visual shifts. Rowan smiled. There it is, he murmured. The voice snapped. What is there? You built this to be flawless, Rowan said. Which means you never tested it against something messy. He shifted his weight deliberately, stepping during the gravity lag. The platform shuddered violently. Warning tones echoed through the crucible. Rowan staggered, nearly falling, but he caught himself, adjusting again. Above, the Triarchs leaned forward. What is he doing? One of them demanded. He is interfering, another replied, uncertainty thick in its voice. Rowan spoke louder now, voice echoing through the arena. You rely on control, he said. Humans rely on feedback. He took another step. The crucible's lighting flickered. The voice rose in volume. Cease movement. Rowan grinned. Make me. He took a third step. The platform lurched. Gravity spiked unevenly. The crucible's own systems fought each other, trying to correct for variables they had never been designed to handle. Rowan dropped to one knee, not in submission, but balance. Humans break things, he said through gritted teeth. Not because we're stronger. The crucible screamed with alarms now. But because we refuse to behave the way you expect. With one final shift of weight, Rowan forced the platform into a harmonic feedback loop. The arena went dark. Silence crashed down. In the observation chamber, the Triarch stared as the crucible shut itself down, something it had never done before. Emergency lights flickered on. Rowan stood alone in the dimness, breathing hard, but upright. Unbroken. The doors of the crucible began to open. For the first time in Dominion history, a subject walked out of the crucible arena under his own power. And the Virex Empire felt something new spreading through its ancient, rigid systems. Not fear. Uncertainty. Because if one human could do this, what could all of humanity do together? The doors of the crucible opened fully, and light spilled across the floor. Elias Rowan stepped out. Not carried. Not dragged. Not supported. He walked. The Hall of Accord fell into a silence deeper than any threat the Virex had ever issued. Delegates from dozens of species stared as if they were witnessing a law of physics being rewritten in front of them. No one survived the crucible unchanged. No one walked out without kneeling afterward. Yet the human diplomat stood tall, shoulders squared, eyes alert, breathing hard but steady. The High Triarch rose slowly. For the first time since the Dominion's founding, the Triarch did not speak immediately. Rowan stopped at the center of the Circle of Judgment. His suit was scuffed. His hands shook slightly from exhaustion. A thin line of blood ran from a cut above his brow. But his expression was calm. The Triarch finally spoke. "You disrupted a perfected system." Rowan nodded. "That tends to happen when humans are involved." A low murmur spread through the chamber. Not mockery. Not outrage. Curiosity. The Triarch descended from its elevated platform, each heavy step echoing through the hall. The honor guards did not move to stop it. That alone sent shock through the watching species. "You were subjected to maximum psychological and physical pressure," the Triarch said. "The Crucible adapts to every known cognitive structure. It has broken walkings, hive minds, even synthetic intelligences." Rowan met its gaze. "It wasn't built for us." "Explain," the Triarch demanded. Rowan wiped the blood from his brow with the back of his hand. "You designed it to find a breaking point. Humans don't really have just one." The Triarch tilted its head. "All beings have limits." Rowan nodded. "Yes. But we don't all reach them the same way." He gestured around the hall, to the symbols carved into the walls. "Your empire values control, order, predictability. You punish deviation." He tapped his chest lightly. "We reward it." Silence followed his words. The Triarch's eyes dimmed slightly, shifting from aggressive brightness to analytical glow. "Your reaction inside the Crucible was inefficient." Rowan smiled faintly. "That's kind of our thing." A few delegates made strange sounds, alien equivalents of laughter. The Triarch studied Rowan for a long moment. "You did not submit. You did not collapse. You did not attempt to dominate the system either." Rowan shrugged. "I learned how it worked and nudged it until it tripped over itself." That statement spread faster than fire through dry grass. Across the Dominion's information networks, analysts replayed Crucible data in disbelief. The human had not fought the system. He had played with it. The Triarch straightened. "You have passed the test." A sharp intake of breath rippled through the hall. "Passed. Not survived. Passed. You are the first," the Triarch continued, "to exit the Crucible without loss of cognitive stability or identity." Rowan's expression remained neutral, but inside, relief washed through him. He had gambled everything. The Triarch raised its clawed hand. "The Circle of Judgment will hear your proposal." That sentence shattered centuries of tradition. Rowan did not waste the moment. "Humans don't want to rule you," he said clearly. "We don't want your empire. We want a future where our people don't live under the shadow of your expansion." The Triarch listened. "We offer cooperation instead of conquest," Rowan continued. "Shared infrastructure upgrades. Joint research. Emergency response systems designed for failure, not perfection." The Triarch's eyes flickered. "You would share strategic knowledge with a superior power." Rowan corrected calmly. "With a partner." The word echoed through the chamber. Partner. A concept the Dominion barely understood. One of the Triarchs spoke from above. "And if we refuse?" Rowan did not threaten. He did not posture. He simply answered. "Then humans will do what we've always done when faced with something bigger than us." He paused. "We'll adapt faster than you expect." The Triarch considered this. For the first time in Dominion history, the calculation was not simple. Crushing humanity would be costly now, not because of weapons, but because of uncertainty. Humans did not behave like predictable enemies. They found cracks. They turned pressure into creativity. You have changed how the Dominion sees your species, the High Triarch said at last. That alone has value. Rowan nodded. Good. Because we're not going anywhere. A long silence followed. Then the High Triarch did something no Triarch had ever done before. It lowered itself. Not to kneel, but to sit. At the same level as the human. A wave of stunned disbelief swept the hall. Human Elias Rowan, the Triarch said, the Dominion will suspend annexation of human systems. Gasps. Clicks. Whispers. Shock. Rowan's heart skipped, but he kept his face steady. In exchange, the Triarch continued, we will enter a provisional cooperation accord. Your engineers will advise our infrastructure councils. Rowan allowed himself a small smile. That's acceptable. The Triarch leaned closer. Understand this, it said quietly. You have not weakened us. Rowan met its gaze. I know. You have made us cautious, the Triarch finished. Rowan nodded once. That's all we wanted. Across the hall, species that had lived in fear of the Dominion for generations felt something shift inside them. Hope. Possibility. A crack in the idea that power only flowed one way. The Triarch rose again. You will remain here as liaison. Rowan inclined his head. Not a bow, not submission. Gladly. As the session adjourned, the Hall of Accord erupted into controlled chaos. Delegates argued, whispered, recalculated alliances. One truth spread faster than any official announcement. Humans were not weak. They were different. And that difference was dangerous in ways empires could not easily crush. Far above the hall, Virex analysts began rewriting threat models. And on a distant human world, a quiet alert flashed across secure channels. Contact status updated. Dominion. Cautious cooperation. Humanity had not fired a single shot. And yet, the balance of the galaxy had shifted. The Dominion did not collapse. That was what shocked the galaxy most. Empires were supposed to fall when challenged. They were supposed to lash out, double down, prove their dominance with fire and fear. The Virex Dominion did neither. Instead, it adapted. And that terrified everyone. Elias Rowan stood on the observation deck of Starbase Epsilon 9, looking out at the massive silhouette of a Virex engineering vessel drifting peacefully beside a human station. Its hull was scarred, ancient, built with brute efficiency rather than elegance. Human shuttles moved around it like curious birds. Months ago, that ship would have been escorted by war cruisers. Now, it was here to learn. The first Joint Infrastructure Council had nearly collapsed within minutes. Virex engineers demanded rigid hierarchies. Human engineers ignored rank entirely and argued with anyone who had a bad idea. At first, the Dominion was offended. Then confused. Then quietly impressed. Humans questioned everything. Why this system had no backup. Why that reactor had no tolerance for failure. Why efficiency mattered more than resilience. The Virex had built perfection. Humans built survival. The first upgrade changed nothing. The second reduced energy losses by 3%. The third prevented a cascading failure that, according to Dominion projections, should not have been possible. Virex analysts stared at the data in silence. Human solutions were messy, redundant, inelegant, and they worked. Across the Dominion, the story spread, not officially, not publicly, but through whispers and internal reports. Humans were unpredictable. Humans were exhausting. Humans solved problems no one else could because they assumed things would go wrong. The Crucible footage was classified. It still leaked. On distant worlds, oppressed species watched recordings of a human calmly stepping through psychological hell and walking out intact. They replayed one moment again and again. The moment he smiled. The Dominion noticed the effect immediately. Border species began resisting annexation more boldly. Not with weapons, but with negotiations. With demands. With refusal. The idea had taken root. If humans could stand without kneeling, maybe others could too. The High Triarch summoned Rowan again. This time, not to the Hall of Judgment, but to a strategy chamber. You have destabilized long-standing assumptions, the Triarch said. Rowan nodded. That tends to happen when new data appears. The Triarch's eyes glowed thoughtfully. Our models no longer accurately predict human behavior. Rowan smiled. Welcome to the club. The Triarch did not take offense. Instead, it asked a question no Vyrix ruler had ever asked a lesser species. What do humans want? Rowan thought carefully. We want the chance to fail and recover, he said. We want room to make mistakes. We want a future that isn't decided by whoever got big first. The Triarch processed this. You do not seek dominance, it said slowly. No, Rowan replied. We seek participation. That word echoed again. Participation. Not control. Not submission. The Dominion adjusted its long-term strategy. Expansion slowed. Diplomacy increased. Not because the Vyrix had grown weaker, but because they had learned something unsettling. There were forces in the galaxy that could not be crushed without unacceptable cost. Creativity was one of them. On human worlds, the news spread quietly. There were no victory parades. No declarations of supremacy. Just a shared understanding. Humanity had been tested. And instead of reacting with fear or violence, it had reacted with intelligence. With patience. With a refusal to behave as expected. Children on Earth watched alien ships dock peacefully in orbit and asked their parents questions no one had answers to yet. Artists painted murals of humans standing eye to eye with giants. Engineers downloaded alien schematics and immediately started arguing about how to improve them. And deep within Dominion space, the Crucible arena remained powered down. Not broken, but retired. Because the Dominion had learned a lesson no amount of conquest could teach. Strength was not found in forcing others to kneel. It was found in surviving the unexpected. And humanity had become the most unexpected force the galaxy had ever encountered. Not because they were stronger. Not because they were smarter. But because when faced with overwhelming power, they reacted differently. And that reaction changed everything.